now.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Check these.
Yeah, don't worry. We all have what we gotta do. Welcome to Subjective Perspectives, where you will hear our subjective opinions, which means we are basically in our own opinion. We are in our own experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And we're talking about the
So, do you want
hostage release, where there is multiple perspectives. You can have happiness on one hand and then be concerned about the terrorists who were released, about 80
Exactly.
today. And you have, what's it called? You have, let's see what this lady said. There's a lady who wrote something very nice. I'm going to repeat it because it's really, really beautiful. She
Right.
said, the very same God who watched and protected these girls for 471 days will continue, will protect the Jews from the 90 terrorists who were released today. 90 is it's a very large number. It's a lot of bad people to be released.
Right.
And then it says sometimes we feel opposing feelings because, you know, because on one hand, we're so happy these people are released, and then on the other hand, we're kind of concerned, and then we can pray for their emotional and
Healing.
their spiritual healing because of what they've been through.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. Go on to
So today, 3 girls got released just now they came home and they're getting checked in the hospital. 3 girls who were hostages of Hamas. May their memory be crushed and may they be eliminated from the world. And so these people are commenting on the situation, and they follow in the Ayn Rand philosophy. So we'll hear what they have to say about Israel and their opinions. Hold on. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise.
Yeah, just continue. Sorry.
Okay. Alright. Okay, let's start. Let's start the video, shall we? Let's try to do this 1 second. Okay.
You need to have some sound effects for this.
When the
you can't just have silence.
surrender agreement was agreed by Israel, it wasn't it wasn't immediately ratified because in Israel there's a government, they have to vote on it and stuff. And you could see headlines saying, well, Israel's trying to pull out of this deal, which of course they weren't. It's just that the anti-Israel crowd is so used to their side not having to go through this kind of stuff as the Palestinian side. This is the policy, and if you disagree with it, here's a free bullet. In Israel, they actually have to sit around the table, talk about it, vote and vote on it. Of course, a vote which was the outcome of which was guaranteed. But the run-up to this is what's interesting here. Israel officially could not have done this deal without public support for it in Israel. And this is really one of the most shocking and saddest things about this war, which was within a few weeks or a month, or I don't remember exactly how long, parts of the Israeli public started to turn on Israel, and not out of support for what we support in this channel, which is actually winning the war, destroying the enemy.
Yeah.
No, it was saying, they're holding hostages, so we need to give them whatever they demand in exchange for those hostages. Those protests became stronger and stronger. If you look at some of the social media accounts of some of the people leading that, you'll see, they often talk about who the enemy is, and it's Netanyahu. It's not Hamas. So the Hamas and their counterparts in Israel seem to have achieve their goal in a sense. Look, this is going to be a tough episode because I'm going to say things, first of all, that I've been avoiding intentionally saying throughout this war, and some people are not be happy with us over. But
What do you think so far?
So far, so good.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Israel. This is probably the darkest moment in Israel's history because of what is guaranteed to come next. Even if it's not tomorrow, even if it's not during this the stages of this deal, even if Hamas fully does everything it has to according to the deal, which I don't think it necessarily won't, because Hamas fights on its own terms and in its own timeline, and Israel also fights on Hamas's terms and in Hamas's timeline.
Yeah.
So that's my
Completely
opening thoughts.
Completely agree. Like what I would have done, right, which will sound very barbaric, but there's only one way to deal. There's only one way to deal with barbarians, right? So my plan would have been from the beginning, first of all, no aid, no humanitarian aid to monsters while they have our babies, right? No humanitarian aid. Shut off all the water, the electric. First of all, the war would have been over. And if it wouldn't have been over in a week, then guess what? We'd take all the terrorists that we have in our prisons, the ones that we know did bad things, and we'd execute them on camera. We'd hang them high from a tree with pig skin wrapped around their body. And for every day that our hostages are not back, we'd kill 1,000 terrorists. Or 100, if we're going to be a little lenient, right? That's what I would do. What do you think?
The real question is, why are these terrorists alive? Like, they're convicted.
Right, exactly. They've done bad things, and we know they did. We have it on camera, so why are they still in our prisons alive, breathing? Why aren't they dead? Why haven't they been killed, right?
Uh-huh.
That's a good question.
Welcome to the reality show. I'm joined by Daniel, Jonathan, and Michael. Michael, I don't know if you're in Israel now, but you're in Israel much of the time. Your thoughts?
Look, I talked a little bit about it on yesterday's show. The Israelis are, the vast majority, especially left-leaning or the centrist groups in Tel Aviv, are very emotional. There were protests every day since the start of the war about bringing the hostages home. Remember that Gil Shalit, who was dead, a soldier who was dead, was brought back in exchange for 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, including
He actually was brought back alive.
Sorry, my apologies. Yes, I apologize. I got confused with another one where they did a trade, but not for 1,000 live Palestinian terrorists who included Sinwar, who then killed 1,300 Israelis and took hostages and also led to the deaths of nearly 900 Israeli soldiers in this. And I have actually had arguments with a lot of Israelis that their view on all of this is destined to be their undoing. And their focus even on bodies and trading hostages' bodies for many terrorists who are
What are you saying? Continue?
No, I'm listening.
jailed is just nonsensical and frankly an offense to the soldiers who gave their lives for this and the soldiers whose lives are still on the line for this.
By the way, a lot of, like you said, or who was it that said, you said, a lot of the soldiers, they wrote, like, last will and testaments, like a will before they went to war, and they said, if I die or I get taken hostage, don't allow any terrorists to be released, right? To get my body back or to get, right? Hmm?
I do think we can blame Israel for sure, and we should, but I think we're underestimating a little bit the strong arm tactics, mainly of Biden and Blinken, and now Trump, perhaps, although I'm not sure what Trump is trying to do here, because it doesn't make sense given...
The thing is, when they talk about the left-wing Israelis, right, that they have this mentality where it's totally fine to, like, let terrorists go, right, because they want their bodies back and, like, we want our people back. But you know something? I think it's a problem on the right too. Like, and also the religious people are not so... I think the entire Israel shares in that perspective. Like, even the rabbis sanctioned this hostage deal. Does that make sense to you? From what I heard. The rabbis...
Right, which is curious because, like, Obama Rebbe was extremely against all of this. All of it.
Right? Yeah.
He said there's no reason any terrorist should be alive.
So then...
Like, if they're a convicted murderer, goodbye.
What's with the what's with the rabbis, like, in Israel today that are saying this is okay? Like, it's not okay. It's going above the, you know, Pidyon Shavuon. There's this thing where you can't pay for the above the rate, the going rate for, like, ransom. You're not supposed to pay because then it will become a thing that they will extort. And they will be encouraged to kidnap more people in order to get more. So there's that, like, you're not supposed to pay above what a person is worth. And it seems that Israel is paying a huge amount. It's not, it's disproportionate, right? You have the one Jewish girl, and we're getting one Jewish girl back, and in exchange we're giving 40 terrorists for one girl. That is not proportionate.
So no, today was 90 for 3.
So if you divide that, right, each girl, for one girl, it was how many terrorist monsters? It's like 30, right? 30, yeah.
...who he's put around him, but there's a lot...
So now it's worth it. It's worth it for them to kidnap more Israelis. Like, it pays, you know?
A lot of pressure on Israel from the whole world, and frankly, nobody, including the U.S., supporting any sort of strong position from Israel, including how they fought the Hamas war from the beginning.
Yeah, let me just quickly say to people in the chat, one specific person who asks questions and then says, please answer. That's one way, but a better way, we are a for-profit. It doesn't guarantee if you super chat that we will answer. If you ask, you send a super chat of $500 and say, why do you support genocide? We're going to thank you for the money and move on. But yeah, we do answer super chats. We, the content is free to watch, but yeah, you don't get to repeat a question often enough and say please and then to kind of get us to answer. Sometimes, but not always. Jonathan.
Well, I mean, Razi, it goes without saying, I speak for myself, I have so much unbelievable, to say I have empathy for these families whose loved ones, not military people, by the way, literally kids and other innocents, including babies, including Americans, abducted as hostages. I have such unbelievable empathy with them. I heard a statistic now that, they've been hostages longer than the American hostage crisis took place, in the late 1970s. And Michael, to your point, Israelis value life. They value life. Palestinians do not. But they were, this is my perspective here, they were dead the moment they were abducted. And Leonard Peikoff, Dr. Peikoff, who of course was Ayn Rand's intellectual heir, he spoke, over 10 years ago, almost 15 years ago, he was asked the question on his podcast, should you ever negotiate with terrorists? And I want, let me just make sure I'm sharing sound, I want our audience, if they would, to listen to Dr. Peikoff's brief and concise answer.
When should you negotiate with terrorists? Never, unless they are means of information that will help you save lives. In which case, you use the information and then annihilate them and deliberately break all promises that you made.
Exactly.
The idea of, if you make a promise to a terrorist, you have to keep it, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You should promise them.
Oh my God, I completely agree with this, right? It's always like, that's the thing I was always wondering about. Why is it that they always get to break all their promises, but we have to keep to it,
Right.
From the moon, as long as you can keep tabs on them and wipe them out the minute you've got from them what they offer. There was the absurd spectacle during, I think it was the Korean War, where they would capture American soldiers and torture them in the most horrendous ways until the soldier could finally say, the North Koreans are right, America's a horrible country, etc. Afterwards, the soldiers felt shame, and the military felt shame, and the country was all up in arms, how could they betray the country, etc. Which is fantastic.
What?
No, keep going.
Listen, any rational person could have told the soldiers, the instant the North Koreans say something, say America's monsters, whatever they want, and we will announce here in the country. That's orders we have given. Why make these poor people hold out some alleged system of honor when everyone knows they're doing it at gunpoint? It is so absurd. It could only be done by politicians who hear words without any context or meaning.
Obviously, just an incredible response. It makes me think of Dr. Peikoff's, should you negotiate with terrorists? Never, except, as he says, to use it as a means to an end. So maybe I'm praying, maybe, they could have gotten all the hostages out, and then the minute the plane hit the ground, said, deals off, and fucking annihilated the place, leveled it. But my sense is that's not how this is going to play out. So people should have listened to Dr. Peikoff, listen to his perspective on negotiating.
The problem is that it's a matter of trust, right? So the Gazans know that usually, Israel will hold their part of the bargain. So when Israel wants to get their hostages back, right, then what ends up happening is that Hamas knows that, okay, they have someone to speak to, right? And so if Israel starts breaking their promises, then they'll never want to keep any, they'll never want to, give back any.
Right, but more than what having them want to do and cooperate is when you use so much force that they're terrified to even behave in such a way. They need to, in the Middle East, it's a violence talked, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing they understand. That's it.
Right.
In the animal kingdom, pray, that's it.
Pray or be preyed on.
In the
Right?
animal kingdom, exactly.
Continuing on.
With terrorists, instead they're going exactly the opposite way. And Roger, to your point, guaranteeing this goes on again and again and again through the rest of my life.
Too much clanging.
Yeah, or as they say, again and again, until there are no more Jews left to kill. That is when they'll be done with Israel and move on to other places. I want to just quickly address a point.
Good point he says there about them killing all Jews and then moving on. I saw this girl on YouTube, and she was saying how she was complaining about how the Islamists are messing up with the British. And she's a British girl herself with all the grooming gangs, and then she says something like about how could the Islamists start accusing the British of being colonizers, right? So she's like, we're not colonizers. Britain has always been British. It's not the same thing as what's going on in Israel. And I was thinking to myself, like, seriously? Like, that's her attitude? Like, she really thinks, she buys into that narrative that Jews are colonizing Israel, when in reality, the same way they can lie about the British colonizing their own country, they can also lie, obviously, about Jews too. She doesn't understand that they're liars. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, you know what? Down with the British. That's their attitude, right? Like, oh yeah, the Islamists have a legitimate claim on Israel, and the Jews are stealing the poor Palestinian homes, when we all know that's a lie. They have zero evidence for that. And so, and for her to take the Palestinians' cause up against Jews, but then cry when the Palestinians use that same narrative on the British, and then also, like, to cry about how the grooming gangs in Britain are raping all the little girls. It's like the Arabs in Israel are the same everywhere. They're literally the same everywhere. They have the same religion.
It's a lack of understanding. While I was in discussion with someone yesterday, they said, how come the Israeli Arabs are not being terrorists? Like, how come? And I said, because they're going to Israeli public schools, and then even if they're learning violence at home, for the majority of the kids, if they're together with Israelis, they experience Jews for themselves, so it doesn't really work.
But they do. A lot of them, I disagree with that, because a lot of them, they are terrorists. A lot of them, they will...
Yeah, but for the majority of them, if they, let's say, it'll be different if Israel loses completely, but if that doesn't happen, because they're not in those schools, I'm bringing them out, because they're not in those schools where they're teaching hate every single day,
Right.
They have a different chance.
They're a little less
And also
hate.
their lived experience is with Jewish people, so
They're a little less
they're
hateful.
taking lives in the West Bank. They're not living with Jewish people every day. They're mostly segregated.
Yeah,
and
but...
the interaction they do have is humiliation and going through checkpoints. So it just further...
No, but...
It's combined with their education.
Right, but, like, my experience here, living here, right, with the Muslims,
Yeah.
they're the doctors, they're the pharmacists. The guy that goes and asks, that Corbin guy, what's his name? Not Corbin, what's his name? He goes and asks people their opinion. Most of the Israeli Arabs, they don't believe Israel should be in this country.
Right, but they're also, most of them are not terrorists. Meaning,
They're not as violent.
fever pitch. Yeah, just because it's, when you're around mostly peaceful people, you kind of get affected by who your neighbors are. If you're going to public school and you're learning math and science, and
But guess
what's
what?
happening in the West Bank and Gaza is
You can't really trust them. You know why?
every
Because
single day.
you can't really trust most of the Muslims that are Israeli Arabs, because
Well,
most of them
if
have relatives in West Bank and
right, if
Gaza.
you have intelligence,
They're all connected.
but if you haven't, right, but if you have intelligence and people who are punished properly for their crimes, then it's less likely
Mm-hmm.
to happen.
Another interesting thing that I noticed about, like, the Arab Israelis is that they're more humbled. They're more. They're less haughty. They're less chutzpahdik. They're less disrespectful. The ones that are Israeli citizens, because they know that they will be in trouble. Because every other Israeli citizen has a gun, and they're very likely to get neutralized if they try anything. You know what I mean?
Did you see the footage of the latest attack in Tel Aviv?
No. What's going on? Maybe we should go check it out. Oh boy. What's going on?
No, it's stabbing.
Yeah, I heard it was a stabbing, and somebody shot him down. I heard from the guy who his name is, what was his name? What was his name? The guy that's, Cohen on YouTube. Let's see, Tel Aviv attack. Tel Aviv terror attack. Tel Aviv terror attack. Victim of suspect. Tel Aviv terror stabbing. Hospitalized in serious condition. Damn. There's a video? Why is
No,
that?
basically the video where all the people started like throwing chairs at him and
Right, everybody reacts.
chasing him away.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, the Israeli Arabs, they understand, they know their place. The ones that live in Israel. Because they're citizens. They're friends with the Israelis. Somebody else brought up to me that, and said, one of the only reasons why an Arab Israeli will go and do a terrorist attack is usually, if it's a woman, it's usually because she wants to die because her life is so bad. So she will go out that way, you know? And most of the time, when the women do it, most of the time it's motivated by desperation. Because of a family situation or that type of thing, you know? Oh, here's the footage. Let's see if we can play it. Let's see. Hold on. See if we can put it here. It's horrifying. Oh, God.
Yep.
There he is. People start throwing. Everybody's chasing him. Then somebody shot him. Yeah, there's a guy with a handgun.
Right.
He shot him.
Right, but why didn't anyone else have a handgun?
I don't
Because
know.
not everyone is carrying. Not every single person is carrying.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Hold on. I'm not sure if. Hold on. Let me see. I'm not sure if. One second. Let me make this smaller. Hold on. It's terrifying. You know. It's really horrifying.
That's the point. It's psychological warfare. It's about making people be afraid to walk in the
This
streets.
is Yishmael. This is Yishmael, the madman. Although this is Yishmael, the madman. This is Arabs, you know.
It's terrorism.
Yeah. Like, this is Arabs, but
The
this
whole point
is
of terrorism is
this is the
to
Arab.
dominate through fear.
But this,
Dominate through fear.
but this is the Islamic mentality. This is Islamic Arabic viciousness. Like, to go to a group of people that are minding their own business and start stabbing them. Oh, there goes the guy with the gun. Wait, which guy has a gun? Which guy? Oh, there he is. I think someone already shot him. Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Jeez. Can you go back to...
Yeah, I sent this video with a person I was having an argument about this whole situationship. I sent this video to them.
Right.
What did I say with it? I said, you know, this is what we're dealing with. I didn't get a response.
I mean,
I didn't get a
listen,
response.
he just has to go and live. Anybody that has problems, that doesn't believe in these things, they just need to live through it. And...
No, but the guy, there was one father, and I don't know if it was one of his relatives were killed, and he said, had it been from had I been witnessing this terror attack and it would have been the settlers, he would have blamed it on them being in the settlement.
Right.
Because
He'd make
if it happened
excuses.
here, then
Because
okay, I'll watch that.
he'd say, oh, why are they there? They're like basically living in Arab land. They're causing problems, right?
Right. You want it? You will play with it? Okay, I'll watch it. Go. I'll bring it to you. I'll rent it and bring it to you. Go. Oh, this is very soapy. Oh, it's bubbles? Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, continue.
Okay.
That Oli, I don't know why I always read his name as if he's Israeli, since I know he's not. Ori says, I have to say I dislike titles like this. Cynical and irrationally pessimistic. For all their mistakes, the one thing Israelis are not are pro-Hamas. So I, on the Daily Objective that we just did, I mentioned the October 9th, 2023 episode of the Daily Objective that we did, that was titled, Why Israel Can't Win. And the point we were making is basically we were telling in advance how the war is going to go, and we were right. And I kept saying, I hope I'm wrong, but I know, unfortunately, I'm not. This is, I knew that this title, and the title for today's Daily Objective as well, would not be popular with our audience. You know, there are many I'm happy to not be popular with, but in this case, the title and some of the things I'm going to say are going to be unpopular, but look, in effect, you need to think through what it is that you're advocating for when you're advocating for something. In effect, when Hamas makes demands in a negotiation which should not take place in the first place, Netanyahu and his government choose to negotiate with the terrorists that did October 7th, in essence saying you are legitimate negotiating partners. Otherwise, why else would you negotiate with them? And Israelis take to the streets to demand that you completely capitulate on the points that you're not yet capitulating. Then yes, those Israelis, if you ask any of them, do you support Hamas? Of course they would say no. We would love Hamas to be destroyed. But in effect, what they are doing is supporting Hamas. So I stand.
Yeah, I mean, it legitimizes them, Razi. It feeds them spiritually. I mean, you're saying to every little 12 and 13-year-old Palestinian kid, if you want to be a hero, follow this road. Keep attacking Jews. And of course, the ones who get returned, I mean, however many dozens they get back, are going to be the heroes of the town, the ultimate heroes. They took on the big bad evil Zionists and won. So there's no long-term thinking here. It's just a sense of these are innocent people. Gee, we can get a deal. We can get them back. And wouldn't that be good? So there's no. It's total. I don't think it's pragmatism, but it certainly isn't long-term thinking, and it guarantees more Islamic evil towards Israel all around and the West for I don't know.
That's not speculation, by the way. What will happen when they get off the bus? We've seen that before. We've seen those scenes, and we also saw the scenes in Gaza when the deal was finalized. Again, those are scenes identical to October 7th. So if Israel did something according to what you were out on the streets protesting for, and people in Gaza are celebrating, you should ask yourself, was this really the right thing? Daniel.
No, let me just say, I think I agree with you that Israel is to blame here largely, or at least certainly halfway. But guys, there's not a single country in the entire world that stood up with Israel during this entire war. All we had was this, and you talk about equivalence, you're right. By negotiating with terrorists, you legitimize them. But Blinken was out there yelling about how we have to negotiate with Hamas. We negotiated with Hezbollah. And there is no leadership in Europe, zero, that supports the West at all. Exactly. Starting from Angela Merkel doing deals with Putin and blaming Trump for everything, all the way to Macron, who pretends that France has any role in monitoring Hezbollah's situation.
So what's his point?
And I think it's one thing, to Dr. Peacock's point, it's one...
He's right, though. Nobody supports Israel at all, in any way, right? We're on our own. So because we're on our own, it's very easy for the morale to go down, right? But we've always been on our own, right?
One thing to make the deal, but then to keep it. The minute they get whatever they want, they should turn around purposely.
I totally agree with you. And to some extent, Israel's doing that with Hezbollah, because Israel's not supposed to be bombing Lebanon. There's not a day goes by when Israel doesn't bomb Lebanon. And the reason is because, of course, the idiots who brokered this deal, who pretended that the international commissions were going to oversee it, have completely failed in their ability to stop Hezbollah rearming.
And it's the same thing we talked about, why the help, all the aid was illegal, it was immoral and wrong
yes.
From the war. It gives them hope. It gives them a sense. If we just keep at it a few more weeks, we're getting hundreds of guys back. We're only in 30. Believe me, you think these 30 some odd are going to come back in great condition, like they just came back from Canyon fucking Ranch? But mostly probably going to be dead. And it's an atrocity in the sense that we're guaranteeing more violence to come.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher.
In a way, this is like an echo chamber, you know what I mean? But then again, maybe it's more like a support group, which is fine. Right? And they are talking sense, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have discussions and talk sense and try to, understand something together, right? You there? Hello?
Yeah, no, I'm just cleaning stuff. You keep going.
Yeah, okay.
For the super chat, the super chat in Canadian dollars reminds me that Wednesday's episode was going to be about Canada becoming the 51st state, but the Israel surrender disrupted that. And Daniel, I know we're a third of the way in and you haven't spoken yet, but I do have to read this one comment because if you're commenting in the chat and it's not a super chat, we may not read it, but we may read it and we get to choose. So the person who wants us to answer his questions also says, Razi has a very radical mind. I guess he is from Iranian descent. Well. You know what happens when you assume, but it's mostly me, mostly you, I think, but you're making an asshole. But anyway, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's like an example of like a package deal or whatever that he views like Iranians as radical ones in what way, but sort of bringing it back and going more fundamentally. I mean, towards the title, why Israelis are basically pro-Hamas. You have to remember that life requires you to take certain actions, and anything besides that, anything lower than that, you are compromising with death. And in a similar way, when it comes to defending your country, when it comes to truly like doing what is necessary, only a complete destruction of Hamas and eradication of the Palestinian culture that allowed this to happen. That's the only way. In a similar way that life has only like one thing to do. This is the only thing you can do to truly protect yourself. And anything else is compromising with evil, is compromising with Hamas. So while if you ask any of the Israelis, no one will.
You're right. It is kind of like a support group because of how, like, we feel like we're just talking like a broken record and nobody's listening.
But maybe there are going to be people that they will reach, because. It's not like it's more frustrating to listen to, like, I guess if you're a radio show that just wants views and like tabloid trash and money, then you'd get all opposing sides, right? But if you're people who are trying to like share the truth and sense, then you have four people that are from different points of views but agreeing on the same opinion, essentially, right? It could be effective, right?
Well, it's more about when there's darkness,
right?
A little light,
and truth.
Will dispel the darkness. Truth telling is important.
Right.
Sales and
even there's like a soundboard.
Right. What sells?
Yeah.
Is not always the truth.
Exactly.
The truth is hurt. The truth hurts. The truth is bitter. The truth makes you need to do things you don't want to. The truth makes you. The truth forces you to be aware of, to just come face to face with whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That will either cause you to have certain feelings. It's easier in a way to live in delusion.
Yeah, that's true. And something, right? What was I going to say about the truth? Truth will prevail. Oh, I was reading in the whatever, and it says that according to the Nevi'im, right, God hates evil, and He commands us to hate evil as well. We're supposed to hate it. We're not supposed to be indifferent. We're not supposed to be like, yeah, we just we don't hate anybody. We have to do the right thing. We're supposed to hate Hamas. We're supposed to hate the Gazans. We're supposed to, according to God, right, according to the prophets, right. We're supposed to hate them, like, because God hates evil. That's from what I understand reading. Do you know what I mean?
Right, but it's not about like hating them personally. It's more about hating what they're standing for, and just behaving rationally and not politically.
Right. Okay, let's continue.
Very few will say that they are, loudly pro-Hamas. But in action, many people are, because anything besides complete destruction will allow it to continue. And just going back to sort of Michael's earlier point about, how much the pressure has Israel been getting. And yeah, it's count the US itself or the UN or all other countries pretty much combined. There have been very few that even stood up in some of the UN votes. I mean, whenever there's a UN vote, you have like a dozen countries in total even supporting. And that has no bearing on anything. It's pretty much just saying, it's pretty much saying, do you hate Israel? Do you hate Israelis? Or do you sort of like Israel? That's pretty much the only thing that vote really means. And even that, overwhelmingly, Israel is losing. But sort of, at the end of the day, when Israel is at the brink of destruction, when Israel is really in the life-death situation, there is no more time to go back and saying, well, but Blinken, forced us to do it. You have to realize that in a similar way that your life is yours and you have to do everything that is necessary to sustain it. Israel has to do anything that is necessary to continue existing. And, once it's gone, people in the West might say, maybe we should have been nicer. But there will be no Israelis who could say, maybe we should have done something better.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in? I mean, in the U.S., it used to be understood that you did not negotiate for terrorists. When I was a kid, I thought that was the idea, and that's part of what made Entebbe so badass. Along the way, we got a lot of prisoner swaps. I believe in the 90s, Israel really.
That's what Rabbi Manis Friedman said. He said that when Israel went and did what they did, that was badass. But it seems like this situation is much more complicated because, Israel had intelligence. What they did was ballsy, right? They were, what they did was daring. They could have all gotten killed, but they had intelligence. And they knew how the airport was laid out and all that to be able to carry out that thing. The question I have is, how come Israel can't get intelligence where when they went and rescued the hostages, like Noah Argamani and all that? Right?
Because they're keeping them with a bunch of humans.
Right.
So the human shields.
Right, exactly. This is why it's much more complicated to be able to get the hostages like that and do missions and to get intelligence, right? In this time. Yeah. Okay, continuing.
Yeah, they're keeping them in the humanitarian zones.
The
until
so-called.
Israel bombed it. Yeah, it's not going to work.
Right. Only if they do like a mission like what they did with the 4 hostages, right? And the families that were holding Noah Argamani, right? They got killed. Because they were all in it together, right? But they were considered civilians. And they were like doctors and part of the press and all that. And they were they had kidnapped people in their homes. It's like a one big crime family, the Gazans.
Started aggressively with a lot of these prisoner swaps, and yes, the title is perhaps pretty provocative because Israel's been a victim of Hamas, but by cutting deals with them, by giving them aid, by giving them legitimacy, you are supporting them. You're inspiring the next little, and think about the wars that America and the West have actually won. I mean, they won them because the enemy has no hope, and no one wants to be associated with that enemy anymore. They want to put down Shintoism, for example, or Nazism in the Second World War. But
right.
In effect, I really think you're glorifying spiritually, philosophically, Islamist fundamentalism for tens of thousands of young people who it's just a matter of time how many of them become not even so radicalized, but make war on the West.
Yeah, and if the title wasn't provocative enough, what I will say later on in the show will probably be. But for now, I do want to read. Akira asked in the chat, "Why are you so handsome, Razi? Please answer." And I've been wondering that as well. But apparently, it's because I'm of Iranian descent. I just recently discovered. I think that's the only.
Somebody informed him that he's of Iranian descent, so he's assuming now that maybe that's why he's so good looking. Isn't that hilarious? I think it's funny.
Reasonable explanation there.
Yeah.
I keep staying on mute most of the time because.
Yeah. Okay.
Even some Middle Eastern cultures have cleaned up their act. But the problem with the West and the problem with the pansies, and they were dive bombing their airplanes into our ship.
Because it was towards this great cause.
Where are we?
Yeah.
Can I quickly jump in, Razi, on the super chat about how do you go against the death call? I mean, 2 great books by objectivists that I know you.
It was all about you have to sacrifice your life to the greater thing, to the German spirit or to the Führer. Or
This happened, and how do we prevent this from happening in the future? And then, if we can rescue some of them, the way I think 5 or 6, so there was the one operation where there were more who were rescued, right? At least 6. Then that's a different thing. But thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says, a disturbing thought: is victory even possible against an enemy who values afterlife over real life? In that way, they're worse than the Nazis and the communists. Thoughts on this? Well, yes, there is a way. Look, if one side says we're fighting for death and the other side says we're fighting for life, there's a win-win there in a completely irrational, not objective win-win. But both sides get what they're fighting for, and that is what should have happened here. And thank you.
Just to add, while the Nazis and the communists were maybe not as much of a dead culture as the sort of the jihadis or the Palestinian culture is, the fact is it was also incredibly collectivistic culture, incredibly sort of specifically with the Nazis. You can actually go listen to some of the Hitler speeches about the way he sort of talked to the people, and it was all about you have to sacrifice your life to the greater thing, to the German spirit or to the Führer or to something greater than yourself. It was all collectivism.
You had kamikaze dive bomb pilots anyway amongst the Japanese who were just be associated with that enemy anymore. They want to put down
Okay.
Shintoism, for example, or Nazism.
To protect yourself, and anything else is compromising with evil, is compromising with Hamas. So while if you ask any of the Israelis, no one, well, very few will say that they are loudly pro Hamas, but in action, many people are, because anything besides complete destruction will allow it to continue. And just going back to sort of Michael's earlier point about how much the pressure has Israel been getting, and yeah, it's count the U.S. itself or the UN or all other countries pretty much combined. There have been very few that have even stood up in some of the UN votes. I mean, whenever there's a UN vote, you have like a dozen countries in total even supporting, and that has no bearing on anything. It's pretty much just saying, it's pretty much saying, do you hate Israel? Do you hate Israelis? Or do you sort of like Israel? That's pretty much the only thing that vote really means. And even that, overwhelmingly, Israel is losing. But sort of, at the end of the day, when Israel is at the brink of destruction, when Israel is really in the life-death situation, there is no more time to go back and saying, well, but Blinken, forced us to do it. You have to realize that in a similar way that your life is yours and you have to do everything that is necessary to sustain it. Israel has to do anything that is necessary to continue existing. And, once it's gone, people in the West might say, maybe we should have been nicer, but there will be no Israelis who could say, maybe we should have done something better.
Can I just jump in? I mean, in the U.S., it used to be understood that you did not negotiate for terrorists. When I was a kid, I thought that was the idea, and that's part of what made Entebbe so badass. But along the way, we got a lot of prisoner swaps. I believe in the 90s, Israel really started aggressively with a lot of these prisoner swaps, and yes, the title is perhaps pretty provocative because Israel's been a victim of Hamas, but by cutting deals with them, by giving them aid, by giving them legitimacy, you are supporting them. You're inspiring the next little, and think about the wars that America and the West have actually won. I mean, they won them because the enemy has no hope, and no one wants to be associated with that enemy anymore. They want to put down.
I couldn't find the spot where by accident I just clicked on the wrong spot, and then I didn't know where we were. So now I'm trying to. Right? We're almost there, right?
Shintoism, for example, we're not.
That this deal is about using your heart, and it's a lot to do with altruism, to be blunt. I estimate that the failures on certainly the Israeli government, terrible failures, decisions that were made, and the stupidity of listening to the heart when we all know this is going to end up killing more Israelis, just as it did from the Gil Shalit deal, releasing Sinwar and his henchmen.
Yeah, and the emotion is, of course,
Are we
the
there?
right one. If you
We're here, the right way.
can put it that way. Of course, we feel terrible for innocent human beings, plucked out of their lives and being held hostage. But then you have to think, why did this happen? And how do we prevent this from happening in the future? And then, if we can rescue some of them, the way I think 5 or 6, so there was the one operation, there were more who was rescued, right? At least 6. Then that's a different thing. But thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says, a disturbing thought, is victory even possible against an enemy who values afterlife over real life? In that way, they are worse than the Nazis and the communists. Thoughts on this? Well, yes, there is a way. Look, if one side says we're fighting for death and the other side says we're fighting for life, there's a win-win there in a completely irrational, not objective win-win. But both sides get what they're fighting for, and that is what should have happened here. And thank you.
Just that, while the Nazis and the communists were maybe not as much of a dead culture as the sort of the jihadis or the Palestinian culture is, the fact is it was also incredibly collectivistic culture, incredibly sort of specifically with the Nazis. You can actually go listen to some of the Hitler speeches about the way he sort of talked to the people, and it was all about you have to sacrifice your life to the greater thing, to the German spirit, or to the Führer, or to something greater than yourself.
Yeah,
it was all collectivism.
That kamikaze.
Yeah, but that goes along with the whole idea of, like, people need to live for something beyond themselves, right? Where they get uninspired and sad and depressed, right? So, I guess it was for a really bad cause, though, right?
Dive bomb. Anyway, on the Japanese, so we're just,
You want to comment?
Do you want to switch to the video of today, which is already started?
Sure. Are they live or are they?
They're live, but we could do like double speak with their heads, like they're already.
Okay, 1 second. Hold on. What I do here is I put it on dark. Go there. New. Go to Ayne Rand. Ayne Rand Center. Okay, 3 hostages released. Which one? 3 hostages released? That one? Or what? Which one?
Yeah, that's
3 hostages released. Okay.
Ronnie Gunen, Emily Damari, and Doron Steinbrecher will sleep in their own beds tonight after 471 days in Hamas captivity. They were plucked out of their lives by Palestinian savages on October 7, 2023, and today, the first day of the second ceasefire, I believe, in this war, they were released, the first 3 of 33 hostages that are set to be released by Hamas during this 42-day ceasefire. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm joined by Daniel. Daniel, your initial thoughts on this?
I mean, it's great to see them back. It's great to see back any hostages anytime we manage to either even get them back by some kind of deal, or more importantly, when we manage to rescue, it's always great to see. I mean, from the start, Netanyahu has said getting back the hostages was one of the goals of the war, and whenever it does happen, it's as always it's great to see. Now the ceasefire only started technically, and there were already some complications. One for basically something that the IDF or Israel itself should have had is the list of the hostages that and sort of the order that they are going to be released by. Now Hamas. Just a few weeks ago, couldn't even provide the list of hostages who are alive. It couldn't guarantee basically who they will get back. One thing we know is basically, when it comes even to the basically 33 hostages we are supposed to get first, we don't even know who is going to be alive, if all of them are going to be alive, what's going to happen there. Something I think Bonnie mentioned in the chat, there are still, I think, 2 at least infants that are still hostages. Now, the fact that they were not the first one released is also what's going on. Why is this the first people who are going to be released? Now, the way it's supposed to work, women, children, and elderly are supposed to be released first before men and IDF soldiers. So this is, in a sense, it's aligned with that. Somewhat we have women, but yet there are still both the elderly and children, actual children in Hamas captivity. And the big question is, does Hamas actually have? Does Hamas know where they are? That's what's already pretty scary. But in the upcoming days, we'll see hopefully more hostages being released. So at least for that, it's a good start. But yeah, we'll have to see how it continues.
Doesn't it sound a little
not to
bit
mention
like
many things.
a complete U-turn? Hold on, what's going on here? Hold on, there's something wrong with my live.
Yeah, I mean, it's an emotional state.
Hold on, I think there's something wrong with my... I think it just... Hold on. Something... Is it working? Hold on. I think it just... Okay, it's working. I just had to renew it. Okay. Alright, back to this.
Things can change tomorrow. Trump is being inaugurated.
He's saying he changed his emotions because he saw... Like it's a complete turnaround from... Not complete, but... He sounds much more...
When you're a human, when you see human feelings, then it's different.
Like, it's very nice, even though, like... We all know what's gonna come. Right? Okay, continuing on.
And we'll see if anything big changes because of that. Considering he supports the deal, I expect not much, but we'll see. I'll just mention, just for information, it looks like Ben-Gvir did officially leave the government, but he is still providing confidence to the government, meaning he is still sort of supporting it without actually being in the government. So I have no idea what that was about. It's almost a meaningless
Did you see the guy
gesture.
Ben-Gvir? He basically resigned, right? So what's that about, right?
Is he right wing? Right wing?
Yeah.
I have to.
Well, it's more than meaningless. It gives kind of the other side of the argument here more power, because Ben-Gvir will not topple the government, but he won't be a part of it. So whatever he's bragged about preventing previous deals, if that's true, he certainly won't be there to prevent the second stage of this deal in 42 days.
At least he stands for what he believes, Like, he said he'll resign if this goes through, and he resigned. At least he stands for what he believes, You can respect that, I think. Right?
But Bonnie says it's not a good sign that the Bibas boys and mom are not first. Yeah, Kfir and Ariel Bibas were babies, I think 6 months and 2 years old, if I'm not mistaken, when they were taken. This deal is for, at this stage, the release of 33 of the 97 hostages, so 30 more out of the 94 left, and the Bibas children are within that list, but there's no guarantee on who is alive and who is dead. I fully expected that the first 3 released would be alive, and in terms of Hamas violating the agreement, because they were supposed to release the names of who's going to get released yesterday, and they waited until today, and then Israel bombed a little and postponed by a couple hours the start of the ceasefire. That's nothing new. The only thing that would be surprising here is if Hamas didn't do that, because they always do that. There was a ceasefire in this war, which included the release of hostages, and they delayed that. And we'll talk we'll talk maybe later today or on some other show about the scenes in Israel and the scenes in Gaza today. Because in Gaza, if you see the way the hostages are brought through, and thousands are out with their phones, looking pretty healthy for people who just went through a genocide and starvation campaign.
The Holocaust, right? Like, kind of someone says there's a Holocaust going on there. That's what made me so angry. I'm like, these fat pig Gazans are running around fat with man boobs. I'm sorry to be so gross, but it just made me angry. You know what I mean?
And celebrating this moment, which is a great victory for them. But of course, in Israel, people are celebrating because they are on the side of life. Because, again, 3 young women were taken out of, we're going to talk a bit more about specifically these 3, but were taken out of their just normal lives that, despite what you hear from the anti-Israel crowd, are very, very similar to the lives that us in the West, in other countries that are semi-free, including the people who protest against Israel, the lives we're used to live, not expecting all of a sudden armed savages taking us, throwing us in tunnels, or with families of savages that'll hold us and actually starve us. By the way, we don't know about these 3, but we know.
When Gilad Shalit was released, right, in that hostage deal for 1,000 terrorists for 1 soldier, he looked like he was basically coming out of a concentration camp. That's how bad he looked. Like, literally.
The previous hostages were saying how they, were taking turns stealing pitas just so that they could eat. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Kenny asked if those are all the hostages. No, it's the 33 are going to be released 3 at a time, more or less. I think in one case it will be 4, once every week for the next 42 days. Today, Israel is also releasing 90 terrorists, and of course, many more terrorists will be released as part of this deal. Thank you, Kenny, for the super chat. Yeah, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to collect my thoughts also. I mean, what else is there to say? Well, I mean, this is again great to see. I'll just mention. I also have some of the things from the IDF spokesperson, Daniel Hagari. He said, "This is a very emotional moment. Alongside the pain, we need to allow families to reunite with their loved ones. Our hearts are with the hostages still held in inhumane conditions in Gaza." And that is truly, something important. People call out about the. Speak out about international law, how Israel is breaking international law. Yet the fact is, when it comes to sort of treatment of and I don't even want to say hostages because Israel has no hostages. Israel has prisoners. The people who were caught on October 7 were terrorists who either have committed horrible acts or failed at committing horrible acts. And the fact is that throughout, since October 7, since when the hostages were taken from Israel and being kept in Gaza, not a single time they were allowed to meet any sort of Red Cross or any sort of international organization to treat them. That was not true.
I'm like looking at the pictures of the. Oh my God! It's just like. Released off. Yeah, it's like you can't help but like look at it and just get emotional. It's just ridiculous. Really sad. They all look like they haven't had a shower for like 3 years, and they look sick, like they haven't seen the sun. What? Okay, let's continue on, shall we? Where are we?
True on the opposite side. Israel had allowed, even for these terrorists, even the people who, if they were killed on October 7, it would be absolutely justified. Even if they were killed after October 7, I think in my mind, it would be absolutely justified. They had, not a single Palestinian had any reason to be there on October 7. The only way they got there is they either directly broke in or they followed the people who broke in. And, I don't know about you guys, but when I see a hole in the fence, I don't go through it and just start killing people or start kidnapping people or start doing whatever I want because, this is just...
That's a good example, Just because you see a hole in the wall somewhere doesn't mean you need to go somewhere and start murdering people. Like, literally. That's exactly what they did. They weren't even... A lot of the civilians came in with the so-called soldier killers, right? And took part in the killing spree.
The Jews. And, that's what's truly terrible about... I don't even want to call it double standard because it's almost not a double standard. They view it as the Jews cannot do right, they cannot do, and Palestinians cannot do any evil. So when you view it like that, it's not a double standard. You just apply beliefs you've always had, and that's what's truly terrible about this whole situation.
Yeah. Thank you, Stefan, for the super chat. Thank you, Harry, for the super chat. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. I want to read a little bit. This is in Hebrew, so I'm going to translate as I go along. But a little bit about the 3 women who were released today. And again, this is this is a happy occasion and should be a happy occasion. And of course, I can be accused of context dropping here because it's a terrible deal without which this specific happy occasion at this point would not be happening. But again, let's remember what we're talking about. We're talking about human beings living their life and basically their lives being not ended in a sense temporarily. They weren't they were technically alive but weren't living in any way that counts. And not to mention the lives of their families when you have a loved one, not just in captivity, but in captivity by the worst savages humanity has to offer. And just so yeah, seeing them released is somebody here said that it's that they just watched it and they're very emotional. Yeah, I spent the last few hours watching this, and I don't know how anybody can not be emotional. So I want to read a little bit. So Omi Gonen was taken from the party, the Nova Music Festival. She was from 6:30 in the morning Israel time. She was talking to her mom on the phone. Those of you who remember what that day was like. It was basically many hours of people trying to run away. Some of them, were talking. Some of them were interviewed on television while this was happening. And I remember watching that, and I don't know how many of those survived. But people were trying to escape to wherever they could, but they were unarmed, and the IDF was nowhere to be found. So she was talking to her mom from 6:30, and at 10:15, she told her that she was shot. Then her mom heard terrorists shouting in Arabic, and the call was ended. Romi Romi turned 24 in captivity last August. Emily Damari was the only hostage who was also a British citizen. She had dual citizenship. She was taken from her home in Plaza, I believe, and she was in the homes in Israel usually have a safe room that's supposed to be safe from rockets, but not necessarily from terrorists on foot. She was in the safe room. She was even sent a selfie from the safe room. They were Hamas were shooting at the safe room and eventually managed to take her into Gaza. Baron Steinbrecher.
You want to continue alone? Because I'm going to end it because I need to go.
Okay, so goodbye. All right.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks. Anyway, so right. So it ends here, right? Because I think that we've made our point and we've expressed what we have to express. And it's more fun to talk with other people. And so, right? Anyway, I hope that the rest of the hostages come home safely. And I hope that they are alive. Whoever is still held hostage is alive, and I hope that they're not suffering. And I hope that we can get them back as soon as possible. And I hope that we crush evil, crush Hamas. We are commanded to hate evil. God says hate evil. What is evil? People who go around kidnapping people from their homes. That's evil. And evil people that kidnap people need to be put to death. That's the punishment, capital punishment. So, without further ado, feel free to subscribe and share. Anyway, have a great day.